Hello kids, so today we are entering into our 11th block. So in this block what are we going to learn? So previously we have learned many fiction stories. Yes, what are the fiction stories? The fiction stories are the stories which are not real, which cannot happen in our real life. Okay, now what about the realistic fictions? Realistic fiction stories are the stories just by reading we think that it may happen in our life like this someday the other day, but really that doesn't happen. So realistic fictions, when we read we think that they may happen in our real life. So each such situations may occur to any other persons or any other animals or someone. Okay, now fantasy, what are the stories? The fantasy stories are the stories which doesn't occur, means they are the imagination. So because of the imagination, if we create some stories, then we say they are the fantasy stories. Okay, so now what are we going to do? We are going to identify the elements of a fiction story. So you want to take a story, we are going to read a story. So in that we go with the rabbits. Okay, so what are the elements of a fiction story? So in the elements we take, previously also we discussed, for every story first of all we want to take the characters, then the setting of the story, then the problem whatever is there in the story. After the problem we want to find the solution, try to find the solution of the problem. So the solution of problem is the next one. After that comes the moral of the story, which we can say as a conclusion or something else. So we can say the moral of the story. So what did you learn from the story? See, these are the normally elements of a story. So here we are going to read a story about Peter, a rabbit called Peter. So okay, we want to identify the elements of that story. That means in that story how many characters are there, what is the setting of that story, what problem they are going to face, and also what solution, how are they going to find the solution for that problem. And after learning that, what is the moral we learned. Okay, now basing on that, let us open the textbook and let us read. Okay, are you ready kids?
So, kids, as our aim is to identify the elements of a fiction story, we are reading a fiction story. The fiction story is one which cannot happen really. So, that is called a fiction story. So, realistic fiction means by reading the story, we can feel that it may happen, but really it may not happen or it doesn't happen. So, let us read the Tale of Peter Rabbit. So, what is the genre of this story? It is an adventure and also a fantasy. So, adventure is a story where they are going on a tour or somewhere and finding the new things. This is called as an adventure. Now, fantasy, which cannot really happen. And this is the story written by Beatrix Potter. So, written by Beatrix Potter, and you can see the keywords, the meanings of which we are going to learn later. So, what are the keywords you can find here? Dreadfully, overheard, scarecrow, shed, underneath, and wheelbarrow. Now, let us move to the next page, page number 70. Now, can you see there what are the characters? Just try to find what the characters are there, what the setting, which is really important for a story. For any story, first you want to find the characters, then the setting, then comes the problem which is there in the story, what solution are they going to find, and what moral are we getting by the ending of the story. So these are the things we want to remember for any story what we are reading. Now see page number 70. Once upon a time, there were four little rabbits. Their names were Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. They lived with their mother underneath the root of a very big tree. So, who are the characters here? There are four little rabbits and also their mother. So, totally, how many characters? There are five characters. And where do they live? What is the setting? Underneath. Underneath means below. Below something. So what it is? The root of a very big tree. So under the root of very big tree. So normally where do the rabbits live? They make a burrow. So they dig a burrow and they live in it. So they are living under the big tree, root of a very big tree. So what are their names? They are Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail and Peter. "Now, my dears," said old Mrs. Rabbit one morning, "you may go to the fields or down the lane, but don't go into Mr. McGregor's garden." Now see what is Mrs. Rabbit telling here. She's telling to the little rabbits not to go into the McGregor's garden. There is a garden and that garden belongs to Mr. McGregor. So here we have one more character, Mr. McGregor, and the garden. It is also a setting, McGregor's garden. It is also one setting. And where did mother ask them to go? She asked them that they can go into the fields or down the lane. Lane means a road, a narrow road, whatever is there. So they can go down the lane and they can go into the fields, but she warned them not to go into the garden which belongs to Mr. McGregor. Now, run along and don't get into trouble. I am going out. So mother said that they can run but they cannot get into trouble. So ask not to get into trouble. I am going out. So mother is going out. Old Mrs. Rabbit took her basket and umbrella and went through the woods to the bakery. She bought a loaf of brown bread and 5 sweets. So where did she go now? Mrs. Rabbit took her basket and umbrella. What did she take along with her? She took a basket and an umbrella and she went to the woods. So she went through the woods. Woods means here forest. Woods means forest. She went through the woods to the bakery. So through the forest she went to the bakery. She bought a loaf of brown bread. So we call bread as loaf. So loaf of brown bread and 5 sweets. Underline the words which are very hard to pronounce for you or the spellings and try to read all the spellings. So if you are able to get the spellings from your textbook, then it will be easy for you to write the classworks or to improve your vocabulary. Now let us move to the next page, page number 71. Flopsy, Mopsy and Cottontail, who were good little bunnies, went down the lane together to gather blackberries. But Peter, who was very naughty, ran to Mr. McGregor's garden and squeezed under the gate. So, can you see there? Flopsy, Mopsy and Cottontail. So, these are the 3 bunnies. They are the good little bunnies. Who can we call good? Those who listen to their parents and doesn't do and the bad things and they follow the rules. But here Peter is there. So what is Peter doing? Peter is a naughty boy. He doesn't listen to elders. He doesn't pay attention to the rules and regulations parents ask him to do. So what did Flopsy, Mopsy and Cottontail do? So they went down the lane together to gather the blackberries. Gathering means to collect. They went, 3 of them went down the lane because mother asked them to go down the lane. So they went there and they gathered the blackberries. But what did the Peter do? He ran into the Mr. McGregor's garden and squeezed under the gate. What do you mean by squeezing? Normally, we squeeze the juice by cutting the fruits. We cut the fruits and squeeze the juice. In the same way, he just went under the gate, means gate is there, he was unable to go, but he just went by squeezing himself, means by taking the place, he went down the gate and he went inside into the garden. First he ate some lettuce and some French beans, and then he ate some radish. So what did he eat? First lettuce, then French beans, then radish. So he ate all the vegetables which are there in the garden. After that, feeling rather sick, he went to look for some parsley. So now he ate more of the vegetables, lettuce, beans and radish. Now he is feeling sick. So maybe some health problem is there. Maybe his stomach is not good after eating more. So he went to look for some parsley. So why he want parsley? Parsley is a vegetable which is a herb and good for health. So it can control the digestion and it had many benefits regarding the health. So maybe because of that, Peter want to eat parsley now. But around the end of a cucumber plant, whom should he meet but Mr. McGregor? So now she went around the end of a cucumber plant. When she went there, whom do you think she met? So he met Mr. McGregor. Peter met Mr. McGregor. Mr. McGregor was on his hands and knees planting cabbages. But he jumped up and ran after Peter when he spotted him, waving a rake and calling out, "Stop, thief!" Now, even in the picture you can see that Mr. McGregor, while he is planting the cabbages on his hands and knees. Can you see the picture in your textbook? So, but as soon as he had seen Peter, he jumped like anything after seeing him and he started running back of him, calling, "Stop, thief, stop." Why? Because Peter went into his garden and eating all the vegetables which Mr. McGregor has planted. So McGregor is a human being and here Peter is a rabbit. So McGregor is running back of the Peter. Can you see in his hand a rake which is used to dig the field? Now let us move to the next page, page number 72. Now can you see? So let us read the first paragraph. Peter was dreadfully scared. He rushed all over the garden. He had forgotten the way back to the gate. He lost one shoe among the cabbages and the other among the potatoes. Now can you see he was dreadfully? What is the meaning of dreadfully? If you see the word next to it, scared, you know that scared means frightened. So what is the meaning of dreadfully scared, dreadfully frightened? It means more frightened, very much frightened, extremely frightened. So it means the thing that very much scared of that. Now what did he do because of that? Why he was scared? Because McGregor was back of him. He is chasing, running behind to catch him. Now he rushed all over the garden. He doesn't know what to do. So what did he do? Peter started rushing all over the garden and he had forgotten the way how to go home back to the gate. So while running and running, he lost his shoes. One shoe among the cabbages and the other shoe among the potatoes. Now, after losing them, he ran on 4 legs and went even faster. He might have got away if he had not run into a gooseberry net that caught one of the large buttons on his jacket. Before he was running on his legs, but now he started running with 4 of his legs. What happened while he is running? So already he was running too fast, so he might have gone outside, but what happened? Suddenly he was caught. What happened to that? Peter was caught among the net. So can you see gooseberry net? So the gooseberry, for gooseberries, they laid a net there. In that net he was struck, and the large buttons on his jacket were stuck onto that net. So what happened then? It was a blue jacket with brass buttons, quite new. Peter shed big tears, and his sobs were overheard by some friendly birds that flew down to help free Peter. Now, while he was caught in the net, he started crying. And do you know, it's a blue jacket and it's quite new, and the buttons are made of brass material. It is a material like iron and everything. Brass is also a material. Now Peter, he doesn't know what to do. He started to shed big tears. What do you mean by shed? Big tears. From where do the tears come? Tears means the drops which come from our eyes, we call them as tears. So Peter shed big tears, means the tears are coming down from his eye. And his sobs means whatever he is crying. Sobbing means crying, were overheard by some friendly birds. Overheard in the sense, just while they are passing by, they heard him crying. So overheard means while passing, if we hear something, then we can say we overheard. So while some others are talking, while we pass in that way, we can overhear them. Okay, so overheard. And what did that friendly birds do? They came down, they flew down and came to Peter to help him free. Now the next paragraph. Mr. McGregor came up waving a shovel, but Peter wriggled out just in time, leaving his jacket behind him. He rushed into the tool shed and jumped into a can. Now when Mr. Gregor came waving the shovel to catch Peter, what did Peter do? He wriggled. Wriggle means moving. Just by moving his body or something, he came out. So just in time, leaving his jacket behind him. So whatever the jacket was stuck in the net, he left that jacket. Previously he lost his shoes. Now he left his jacket and he came outside from that net. He rushed into the tool shed and jumped into a can. Can you see there in the picture a tool shed? A shed is there where all the tools were kept. And he came inside that and he jumped into a can. Can you see only his ears were able to see? Yes, he came and he hid in the can. It would have been a beautiful thing to hide in if it had not had so much water in it. Mr. McGregor was quite sure that Peter was somewhere in the tool shed, maybe under a flower pot. So what happened when he came into that? He had seen a place in the can and he jumped into the can. But what happened? Some water is there in the can, so he cannot sit in the water for much time. So it would have been beautiful thing to hide in if it had not had so much of water. So that means that because of that water he was unable to sit in that can. So where can he hide? But what is happening here? Mr. McGregor, he is checking all that shed under the flower pots and everywhere he is checking for Peter. What did he do? He began to turn them over carefully, looking under each. Just then, Peter sneezed. Achoo! Mr. McGregor was after him in no time and tried to put his foot upon Peter, who jumped out of a window. Now, because of water, he was unable to sit inside it for much time. So, what did he do? Because of water, he sneezed. How did he sneeze? He made a sound. Can you see? Achoo. So, normally human beings also make that sound. So, when Peter sneezed, Mr. Gregor was searching under the pots. Now he stopped searching under the flower pots and he came running to him. He was about to step on Peter, but Peter jumped out of the window and he escaped from there. Now let us move to the next page, page number 73. Now see the first paragraph. What happened to Peter after escaping from the shed. Peter found a door, but it was locked, and there was no room for a fat little rabbit to squeeze underneath. An old mouse was running in and out over the stone doorstep, carrying peas and beans to her family in the woods. Now, see here, Peter found a door. So, after moving from the shed, he went near a door, but the door was locked, and there was no room, in the sense there was no place for a fat little rabbit to squeeze underneath. Because it was able to freely squeeze under the gate, it went. But now this door, it doesn't have much space under the door, so it was unable to squeeze from underneath, means from below the door it was unable to go. But who is going here? Can we see? Yes, we can see a old mouse. Because it is small, it can squeeze under the door and it can go, but not the rabbit. Now, what is the mouse doing? It is carrying the peas and beans from the garden to its family in the woods. Woods means, already we discussed, woods means forest. So, it is taking the food from the garden and it is going into the forest and it is taking to her family. Now, Peter asked her the way to the gate. Here, her means the mouse. So, Peter asked the mouse the way for the gate. So, to go so that it can go and it can escape to its house. But she had such a large pea in her mouth that she couldn't answer. She only shook her head at him. Peter began to cry. Now, what happened? Is it able to give the answer? No, the mouse was unable to give the answer because of the large pea, means the size of the pea is very big. Large here means very big in her mouth, and just it shook her head. Shook means just shake the head, but we cannot understand the answer. That's why Peter began to cry. Can you see the eye drops in Peter's eyes? Yes, they are the tears. Previously we discussed they are called as tears. Now let us move to the next one. He went back to the tool shed when suddenly, quite close to him, he heard the noise of a hoe. Scritch, scratch, scratch, scritch. Peter jumped underneath the bushes, but as nothing happened, he came out and climbed onto a wheelbarrow and peeped over. Now again he went into the tool shed. So he came away from the tool shed. Now he didn't get any way where to go. So he went again to the tool shed, and suddenly what noise did he hear? So this is the noise. That means he can hear by using his ears that a scritch scratch sound came. It is the sound made by hoe. Hoe is an instrument which they use in the garden to cut the things. Okay, now Peter jumped underneath the bushes. What did Peter do? He jumped because of hearing the noise. He got frightened. How did he feel here? He was frightened. So he jumped underneath the bushes. Underneath means under. Okay, but as nothing happened, so when he bent like this, he observed that nothing happened. Nothing is there. When he came to know that there is no problem, then he came out bravely to see what is going to happen, and he climbed onto a wheelbarrow. Do you know what is a wheelbarrow? Can you see there a trolley with we used to collect all the mess which is there around us? So it is a trolley which we pull it by using two handles and a wheel. You can see it, we can see it in the picture. And peeped means to look. He was looking, just observing what is going on with frightened. Okay, so the first thing he saw was Mr. McGregor digging onions. His back was turned towards Peter, and beyond him was the gate. Now when he climbed onto that wheelbarrow, from there he can observe. Can you see in the picture, children? He can see Mr. McGregor. He is digging onions by using, maybe the scratch sound came from that hoe which he is using to dig. Now his back was turned towards Peter, means he is not observing Peter, but Peter can see Mr. McGregor, and also a gate is there. Beyond him there was a gate. You can also see from the picture. Okay, now let us move to page number 74. Hope that you are there. Then how do you feel? Just think by using your senses, children. Okay, now let us see. Very quietly, Peter got off the wheelbarrow and started running as fast as he could go along a straight walk behind some black currant bushes. Mr. McGregor caught sight of him at the corner, but Peter didn't care. He slipped underneath the gate and was safe at last in the woods outside the garden. Now, what did it do? So, when Peter observed that the McGregor is turning towards the other side, he quietly observed the way towards the gate. So, straight as he was there, according to the gate, he guessed. See how intelligent he is. He guessed now how to go around, and he got off from that wheelbarrow and started running as fast as he could along a straight walk behind some black currant bushes. So some bushes are there and he was walking. So he's running. Can you see the words like running, walk? These all are the verbs. And as fast as, this is the word which you use for with adjective, as fast as. Along a straight walk, there is a straight walk. So along that straight walk, it is a preposition. Behind some black currant bushes. So he is running and walking behind the bushes. But what happened? Mr. McGregor caught sight of him, means he observed that he is running, Peter is running. So what he did, he also came behind him running. But did Peter care? No, because if he stops, Mr. McGregor may catch him. So he ran without looking back and he slipped underneath that gate. As he came inside, in the same way he went outside from underneath the gate, and he find himself safe at last in the woods, means forest, outside the garden. So now he is outside the garden. Now he is feeling that he is safe. Now next, what happened? Mr. McGregor hung up the little jacket and the shoes as a scarecrow to frighten the blackbirds. Do you know what is a scarecrow? Normally we call in Telugu as Dishti Bomma. Okay, so it is used to scare. Scare means to frighten the crows. Means if it means that by seeing the shirt and shoes like that, if we hang them to a stick, the crows think that some person is standing there. So they won't come to eat the grains or some vegetables or whichever are there in the garden. So Mr. McGregor, he used the little bunny's shirt and shoes as a scarecrow. Now Peter never stopped running nor looked behind him until he got home to the big tree. Now see how he ran. He never stopped. He didn't stop running. So as he slipped from the underneath the gate, he ran towards the woods and reached the big tree, his home. He reached his home under the root of the big tree. Now he was so tired that he flopped down upon the nice soft sand on the floor of the rabbit hole and shut his eyes. Because he was frightened, he was running and he was in such a mood that he was frightened. So now when he reached home, he felt relaxed. So he went into sleep. As soon as he shut his eyes, he was in sleep. So he started to sleep in that rabbit hole. His mother was busy cooking. She wondered what he had done with his clothes. It was the second little jacket and pair of shoes that Peter had lost in a week. See how naughty Peter is. So, in the week, he lost 2 pairs of shirt and shoes. And mother is not understanding what happened to him. And she was busy in cooking while he entered the room. Okay, now see, we can by this guess that really he is very naughty. So somewhere he goes and he leaves his jacket and his shoes. He'd always lose them. So it is just like an adventure. That's why our lesson genre is an adventurous fantasy. Okay, now let us move to the next page. So this is the last page of our lesson. Let us see what happened at the ending of the story. I am sorry to say that Peter was not very well during the evening. His mother put him to bed and made some tea for him. Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail had bread, milk, and blackberries for supper. Happy to be safe at home with his mother, Peter promised himself that he would never be naughty and he would definitely never be returning to Mr. McGregor's garden ever again. Now, see here, I am sorry to say. So, who is saying these words? Maybe the author. He's saying that Peter was not very well during the evening because he knows that Peter is not well. As soon as he came home, he slept and he didn't had his dinner. But the other three bunnies enjoyed their dinner with bread, milk, and blackberries. But only Peter had tea, nothing else other than that. Already he ate, yes, already he ate many vegetables from the garden of Mr. McGregor. So he was sleeping. Can you see? Yes, just by taking a cup of tea, he slept. And Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, they enjoyed eating the bread, milk, and blackberries for their supper happily. But Peter, though he ate, he didn't enjoy. He was frightened by eating all those things. Now, happy to be safe at home, he promised to himself, not to his mother, that he will never be naughty again. And do you think that he will again return to Mr. McGregor's garden? No, because already he faced problems, and we think that he will not like to face the problems again. And he may not escape the next time. So I think that he may not. So what do you think, children? Do you think that again he will go to Mr. McGregor's garden? So what lesson did he learn from this? Okay, so try to read the story once again and try to recollect everything whatever are there. Basing on this, we want to write the volume. Okay, now let us go with the glossary first. Dreadful, extremely, terribly. So already we discussed dreadfully, feared, dreadfully, late. So we can use them so with an intention of very, more. Okay, overheard, accidentally heard something that was said to another person. He overheard. Who overheard? In the lesson we observed that Peter had overheard. Now scarecrow, scarecrow is to frighten the bird. So it is an object in the shape of a human placed in a field to frighten away the birds. Shed, shed means to let something fall. So he shed tears. He allowed the tears to fall from his eyes here. Underneath, below something. This word we got many times, underneath the root, underneath the gate, underneath. So below, it means that below something. Wheelbarrow, already we had seen the picture. It is a cart with two handles and only one wheel. Okay, now let us move to the volume. Elements of a fiction story. So if you see the first one, matching the things from the tale of Peter Rabbit. So if you can see the characters, which sentences are telling about the characters, setting, problem, what problem is there in the lesson, and what is the rising action, so what action they did because of that, and climax, and also climax is the ending of the story, and conclusion, what you are guessing. So according to this, what lesson we have learned, basing on this, it will be there the conclusion. Now coming to second one, we want to use the elements of the story above to write its summaries. Just write summary within 4 or 5 lines, just by explaining, by seeing the details given in the first question. So summary must be very small. So write one difference between fiction or non-fiction story. So all these days we were discussing about what is a fiction and what is a non-fiction. The stories are there. So basing on what you know, just try to write the answers.